My guest today is Ethan Yu, a filmmaker and photographer based in the Bay Area. He graduated from Emerson College with a bachelor's degree in media arts production and a minor in photography. Now, he is pursuing an MFA at Stanford University in the documentary film program, and his work has been featured by major news outlets, and his documentary films have been showcased at renowned international film festivals, including the Sundance Film Festival and art house venues like the Anthology Film Archives. He is here today to discuss his brand new short film, Death Education, which was an official selection at this year's Sundance Film Festival. So let's welcome filmmaker Ethan Yu and his short film, Death Education, to the show. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to talk here.
You bet. Well, tell me, how did you come up with the idea for Death Education and to create a film about it?
Yeah, so the story was it's a kind of long story that I was trying to find a project to do back in 2022 after I quit my freelance job as a commercial freelance director. And I was looking through projects and I come across this news article in China about this teacher opening this class of burying unnamed ashes on the traditional tomb sweeping day as a chance to talk about death. And just that moment, it just clicked of oh, I want to do this story. But the thing is, the event only happens once a year because it's on the traditional holiday. So I jot down on my notebook saying, okay, next year around that time, I'll take a look if it's still happening. And that was 2022, and a lot had happened in 2022 to 2023. Namely, I start to enter age where friends around me are entering this age. I'm 26 right now, by the way. It's entering this age where we encountering the passing of a family member for the first time. And at that time, my grandma was in pretty bad health condition. And there's a lot more I want to talk about. How should one encounter death, talk about death. And when the time comes in 2023, I reach out to the teachers. It just hit off really good. And I went for a visit. I talked to students and it was shot in 5 days. So it was really, really quick. And the event itself is actually just 1 day, but it's a very short shoot, but has a huge impact on me. And yeah, it's a long journey.
So, why are we as a society so unprepared about confronting death?
I think it's just the fear. I can only talk from my own perspective. I feel it's because we cherish the moments that we have spent with family members or friends of the time we're living, and the idea of that come to an end just seems unbearable sometimes. I remember as a kid, I always worry about oh, what will happen to my parents or my grandparents. I think it's normal for every kid to sometimes wonder that. And yeah, it's a fear for the uncertainty.
So, as I was watching your film and I was doing some reading on the backstory of your film, why is death a taboo subject in China, but in America, it is not? I mean, even my own father was a funeral director for many years, so I understand much of the funeral process here in America, but why is it so taboo in China?
Well, I kind of feel it's a taboo subject universally. There's some cultures that will talk about that more openly. I feel you have a very unique and special experience when it comes to it. I think it's a cultural aspect of that. There's lots of because death is so undesirable. There's this sense of oh, this is bad luck to talk about it. If we don't talk about it, it will not happen. I think it's just human nature for us that to not face the things that we don't want to encounter.
Well, I understand that there were, when you did the film, and there were students who took part in this ceremony. Um, Under, I guess, the permission of their parents, were there other students whose parents told them no? And is it because in China, from what I've read, that death could be a sign of bad luck?
Yeah, of course. So just give a little bit of background of like what happens on this event. Is that so? This happened in like a school that has both high schooler and middle schooler. So the students ranging from like seventh grade to like 11th grade. So the age difference vary, and it was in total of around 20 students that joined the event. And of course, like prior consent will be needed from the parents for like mostly two reasons, because one is happening like outside of school. For safety issues, the parents need to consent. Also, this issue of like they're having like an actual contact with the ashes. There's some like health safety issues, and of course there's some taboos that there's some like their parents that just say no because they don't want the children to be in contact with that, because yeah, it's some people think it's bad luck, and have like such a close contact with the kind of the forbidden aspects of what people don't want to talk about. So yeah, there's definitely parents that are saying no, like, oh, I just don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I can understand the parents' point of view. Now, tell us, who is the teacher, Xian Jiambo?
Yeah, so the teacher is how do I describe it? He's kind of he's not teaching any like regular curriculum. He's teaching this more like I don't know how you would call it. It's kind of like um how do I describe it? Let me think. It's more of like an actual curricular activity. So he will organize this kind of events, or will talk about like social work. We'll talk about like doing some experiments of like doing some like specialized project. This is like one of their projects of like it's been taking on like for many years of like it happens started in 2018 when a student was like visiting a funeral home and trying to do some like ground research, and they came across this ashes like stored away, and they kind of like they wrote a report to the local government saying, oh, can we do something about it? And like step by step they were the one pushing the ceremony to be happening and to be supported by the police, the funeral home, because it's a lot of like logistic involved to bury a unnamed ashes. So there's a lot of work was prior to the event I was filming that happened many years before that. Was a lot of the groundwork of pushing this project to be happening.
Now, I noticed that in the beginning of the film, it shows cremated cremated ash remains. Um, was that a real body in the film that was going to go through the cremation process?
Are we revealing the movie magic? Okay.
Well,
So
that's up to you. I was really surprised um, because my father was a funeral director. One of the things that was never allowed was to take pictures of the deceased. Now, of course, if it was a crime situation, that's what the police do, but the funeral home is never allowed to take a photograph, much less a video, because back in the day, there was no such thing as taking
mhm.
video because of film. But so I was kind of wondering, or was that something that that you created in the film just to kind of give us that sense of how the process is done?
So the process of like having the permission to film there, it was easier. Like you just only have to get the permission from the management. And the actual filming process, as you said, there's some logistic involved. Of like you cannot really just like burn a corpse like out of your will. There's a lot of paperwork need to be done. the police had to sign off saying, because there's some logistic issue when it comes to like crime or whatever. So what we did is that we kind of reburned some ashes that was already there. So it was a real process, but we just kind of like we make the process more logistically accessible for the filming process. But
Yeah,
all
I
the ashes
no,
were
yeah,
real.
I completely understand that. Now, I was curious because um, this film focuses on, just like the title says, death education, uh, and it's all based on cremated remains. I was curious, Ethan, because in China, does the family have a choice when it comes to burial? Do they do traditional burial in a casket, and then do they also get offered the choice of cremation, just like here in America?
Oh, it's very very differently based on like the culture. Like where the if you're from the north, there's some people prefer different. If you're from the from the west area of the China, they have like a very traditional ceremony of funeral. And yeah, it's very. There's some open casket. There's some just cremations. From where I'm from, cremation is the most, I don't want to say popular, but the way that people go with it.
Well, here in America, cremation has become very popular because it's upwards to, I think, 10 times less expensive. So, for a lot of families that cannot afford a traditional burial, many do go the cremation route because it's so much more inexpensive. And I was very curious because your film brings up a lot of questions, especially when you're showing a lot of these red bags full of remains. And so I was kind of wondering, in China, what is actually done with this with the deceased when their bodies are unclaimed?
Right. So for those bags that appeared in the film, they have very different origin stories. For some of them, are they left there for decades? I think the oldest one was dated back to like '06 or '08, something like that. It was mostly because the deceased was from a like an accident, or the police found them on like a crime scene, or it could be as simple as like someone fell down into a river and passed away that way in a tragedy, and the police recovered the body, but they cannot identify the name of the disease because the technology back then wasn't that advanced. It's hard to identify. So there's some like bags are like just like there's no name on it. Like people don't know who these people are, and they were stored because they were like hoping that the technology will advance that they can somehow identify, or there were people will come back to search for the people who are missing. So there's a lot of logistic involved in what if somebody come back to claim these ashes. That's why they're stored rather than like buried right away. And what's the question again? Sorry.
I was wondering, in China, what is done with the deceased when the bodies are unclaimed. So, if no one ever comes to claim the body, and I'm sure that they probably allow a certain amount of time, are all the bodies that are unclaimed end up being cremated?
That's a good question. So they won't cremate all the bodies are like without like a sign off. There are a lot of bodies are like after cremation, the family just don't want to go pick it up. For those bags, they will like remain there for like a couple years because there's always this sentiment of like, oh, what if they come back to claim it? Then there's some responsibility involving, oh, I didn't say you can bury them. Why do you? So there's a lot of questions like that. But yes, there's some like usually they have like waiting periods for the body to be stored there. but again, the funeral home only have so much capacity to store so many bodies or so many bags. So it's really up to the local government and the local funeral homes to determine how long they want to store it.
Yeah, one of the things that I loved about your film is how you showed the utmost respect for the deceased. And even though this was an educational process for the youth that were in the film, uh, they're handed these red bags. They're going to a particular location to bury them. But I loved the respect that was shown. Now, why did you choose to keep the dialogue in the film to an absolute minimum?
So first of all, thank you for saying that. It was actually a desire of me that I said that the film was shot in 5 days. And the event kind of happening during the second day of the filming. But during the first day, I was there on like a location scout filming some b-roll at the cemetery. It's a very large public cemetery. And I was there like looking at all the tombstones. And on the tombstone, there are names. There were names and words on them saying that their connection to, who's their kids, who's their grandkids, what's their date of birth, and like one line or two of their stories. And to me, those words are the connections of them to the living.
Yeah, that
And then I
makes
turn
sense. No, no, go ahead, Ethan.
and I turn around. There's this empty pit with the name of the tomb of the unnamed that will be filled the next day. And I just felt that moment of like, oh, something is in the air that's like struck me. And that's kind of like my personal motivation going into the shoot of like, okay, this is something I want to convey, the emotional experience of being there. And going back to the question, that's kind of why I try to not make a film that rely on dialogue or narration to essentially say, oh, what am I feeling or what I'm about to do. I remember in like early version, I made like a 1 minute trailer of the film, and that trailer has more dialogue than the dialogue we have right now in this like 13 minutes of film. It's because I have lots of narrations that's saying, "Oh, we're in the bus going to the funeral home. I'm feeling this way." I have lots. I record a lot of narration of the students saying how they feel at each moment of the process, but I choose to keep it away from the film because I want it to be a virtual experience for the viewer. Of like, I just want to try to put you in the process of like, here's what I saw, here's what the student felt. I hope you can tag along.
You did that. I mean, when I watched the film, you, as an audience, you become part of their story. And I love the fact that there was minimum dialogue because again, it shows great respect for those who have passed. Um, Many of them unclaimed. They don't have family present. And the dialogues that were actually in the film, they are from the writings found in the student's diary. Is that correct? And why did you choose to use their own words?
Yes. So the all the narrations or voiceover were from the diaries of the students, which they wrote the night of the event. It because it's a part of the coursework, and I said to them, I know you guys have to write this like diary after the event, but try to write it for your own, like for yourself. Don't write it for the class. And they wrote it. To me, the reason why I want to have them read the narration, have read their own writing instead of like me asking the question is kind of like there's two reasons. First of all, from the get-go, I understand that I'm interested in the student's perspective of going to the event. I'm not interested in the I'm not interested in the how do you say, the the narrative of it. I'm interested
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
the
you're not
experience of it.
interested in an opinion. You want to know what the students truly felt on an emotional level going through that process of with the remains. And that
Yeah,
I completely understand.
and in the writings, in the beginning I was expecting that I was trying to guess their reactions, right? And I was thinking, okay, maybe the students who have experienced death will have like a different reaction than the people who haven't experienced death. I was kind of imagining that the people who encounter this for the first time will have like a stronger impact, but in the end, it was kind of the reverse. It was a student who have experienced some tragedy or the passing of a family members who can relate the most. They would kind of like use the ceremony as a way for them to contextualize their own experience. And I found that when students read their own writings, it felt different. It felt more intimate. It's not like you and I are telling a story together. I'm telling you. They're sort of like reading their own writing. They're reading on their own inner dialogue. That it felt more intimate, and that's why I chose to like have them read it rather than like, oh, tell me about your story.
And it works. So let me ask you this, because with some of the students, was this their first time ever? Um, because in a way, this is a funeral. And for some of the students, was this the first time that they had ever been to a funeral? But you actually expanded this because they're actually participating uh, in this. So was for some of them, is this their very first time ever?
I think for most of them, this is their first time ever. But there's some students
Wow.
who, and I think the first voiceover was talking about how he had some past experience going to a funeral of his grandma, and that hit differently for him. But for most of students, this is their like very first time going to a funeral.
Wow. Now, I know that this film has a very surreal, but it also has a very somber tone. The cinematography is excellent, especially when you're outside of I guess the crematorium. You're out in to the cemetery. The the foliage, the greenery, the look where the cinematography really brings the connection of of the deceased and with nature. And I thought that was a very beautiful part of the film.
Thank you. Yeah, I was while filming at the cemetery. I saw a lot about like why do we need rituals? Like why do we need a funeral? It's mostly because it's a process for us to confronting to have a dialogue with the passing of a family members or a friend. And there's this sense of like we come from nature and we come back to and we go back to nature, and that's why I'll film so much of the nature shot, and that's why the green in the cemetery hits differently, because in the end all the ashes are buried in the dirt. In a sense, we just goes back to nature.
Well, and it's weird, but I say weird in a good way, um, because of the cemetery setting and the way that you filmed it. Um, very, very. I mean, the audience feels a part of that nature that you filmed, the greenery, the foliage, the movement of the camera. It really made it. Well, I guess the only way I can say it is it took the death out of death.
I feel like there's beauty in the process. Is that in the end, even though this is a film about death, but I want to say it's a film about the living. It's a film about life. It's a film about like looking at the the reason why I want to talk about death is because, so we can live better. We can keep going forward in the face of the inevitable death that will come eventually. I am fortunate enough that I have not encountered the passing of a family member yet, but it's a for me it's the filming itself is also like a death education for myself of like coming to terms with my own feelings,
Yeah.
and there's a sense of like even though we're looking at the death, in return we'll feel like a tenderness in living in life, and that's kind of like my only hope of takeaway from the audience of like watch the film and try to bring yourself to it. And whatever you get from it, it's yours. It's not mine. I'm just there to make a film for you, and I hope you can be part of it.
Yeah, I believe that. Now I know that you were in an official selection at the Sundance Film Festival. What has been the audience's reaction to this film?
It's yeah, premiering at Sundance last month has been amazing. It's a very busy process, but first of all, it's great to see the film with audience on the big screen. My films played in the documentary short program. It was played in the first. It was first in the programming, so I can feel the room changing. You know how like when the program starts, everybody's like settle in. They're like getting their seats. They're like chattering. But then the film plays, and you can feel the room getting quieter. You feel the room settle down as the film plays, and that to me is a I was happy to see that of like, oh, I sense a connection in the room that's nonverbal, and to me that's amazing. And I had some great conversation with people after the screening. um, I was a little bit skeptical in the beginning of, oh, because of how minimal dialogue, how minimal like narrative the film is. I was wondering if the audience can tag along in a sense of like following the narrative and bring themselves to the story, because it's not a easy topic to watch, and I was wondering if there's some barrier to viewing the film. But in the end, I feel like people are getting the film, and I'm happy to see that. And while I was reading some reviews, people were sharing their own experience with death, and they're talking about the form of the documentary of how we don't need dialogue, we don't need much of a narration to tell you what's going on, trusting in the image, and it reflects.
It does, and I always love short films that have minimal dialogue. If it's if it's a fictional story, I want to see actors' reaction. Now with a documentary, it's completely different. I've seen documentaries where, like you said, it's overdone with narration. Sometimes that takes away from the visual. But in this case, it's the visual that completely tells the story, and that's a good thing. Now, has have you shown this film in China?
Not yet. Just because we are only premiering at Sundance. This is the Sundance was our world premiere, so that was the first time that the film was showing to the audience. It was actually just finished like a week or two before the premiere, so it's really fresh right now. Um, but yeah, going back to the about the form of a short film, I used to think of documentary short as like a mini feature, but I don't think about that no more. Of like short film its own genre, its own form. That's it can be just a small window into a story. Doesn't have to tell you anything, everything. It's just like a small window, like a gesture toward here. Take a look, and I feel like that's enough for a short film. It's not obligated to tell a complete arc of a story, has a beginning, middle, and end. It can be simpler, and that's when I found like my language with short film. And yeah, I'm in a process of festival run. I'm hoping to bring the film to more people. uh I think I said like I did the film in 2013, 2023. and I felt that there's a sense of urgency trying to get the film out there. And even though this is like 1 year later than I expected to, but I still want to get the film out there as soon as possible because, yeah,
Well,
it's very.
yeah, I think you're on your way. Now that you were a an official selection and world premiere at Sundance, I don't think you're going to have a problem getting into other film festivals. And this is a complete documentary short film. It's beautiful. It's respectful. You did just an amazing job telling this story. And I can, I know for a lot of audience members, a lot of people who have never been in contact or truly understand cremation, they're going to be surprised, well, what's actually left over. So for a lot of them, this film is a little bit more educational than just the burial of the unclaimed, but through the whole process as well. So I'm sure you're getting questions like that as like that too.
Yeah, it's. I actually had a. I filmed for 5 days, but the first three was like a first. I did like in two trips. At first, I just filmed the cemetery, and I filmed the event happening, and I recorded the narration, the student reading, and that was like 3 days, and that's it. And I came back home, was watching the footage, and I was like, something was missing. I kind of need the process before that. So I did like another trip just for like a weekend of like, hey, hi, I know we met that day. Can I come to the crematorium and film the process a little bit? And surprisingly, they say yes, like right away. And they said to me afterwards that they agreed for me to be filming is because I wasn't I wasn't afraid of talking about it. I wasn't treating it as like a taboo subject, and they were happy to. They felt respected in the process.
Well, you were very respectful, which is one of the major elements that I noticed in this film. So, what do you hope that your film will achieve with the audiences that will be seeing it this year?
I always believe in a sense that as the film is out of my hand, it's for the audience to interpret. And I set my expectation of like I hope the films can bring a emotional journey for every person. And I want to ask like a piece of the audience themselves, like when they were watching the film, of like if you can bring yourself into the film in whichever ways I felt you felt comfortable. I hope it will worth your time and worth the experience of watching it. And yeah, I kind of understand that this is not a it's a hard film to click. It's a hard film to start watching the first minute. But I hope that the curiosity. I think we all have the curiosity of wondering, oh, to talk about death, even though this is a hard subject to talk about. I feel that's universal. That we all wanna have peace with it. But in the end, I don't think the film or me is trying to offer an answer. I don't think there's like an answer to any of this. But it's like it's a process showing, oh, this is how other people are coming to term with this. This is how I am coming to term with this, and hope I can offer some peace in the process of it.
Yeah, I think you will. Now, are you working on any new film projects at the moment that you can talk about?
Yeah. December of last year has been really busy. I was in China finishing this film, and I was in China mostly because I was filming another project. I'm doing another short documentary right now about parents of autistic adults. How after like 20 years of raising a kid on the spectrum, they're entering adulthood, but they cannot live independently. And the parents themselves are entering the age of retirement that they kind of have to wonder the question of what will happen to the kid if they pass away one day. Who will take care of the kids? And there's a lot of questions about like guardianship, the financial care, the day-to-day care, and there isn't that much of a systematic support for them. So the film is about setting in like a domestic family, looking at the mother, contemplating of the future as she's preparing to deal with this uncertainty in the future. So it's kind of like a silhouette of a mother contemplating the future of what will happen if she passed away one day to the kids.
Well, I look forward to seeing that film. So when you get that one done, you're going to have to come back because that is a very important subject to be covering. And ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Yu's short film, Death Education, is about a high school teacher that has introduced a death education class for young students. Now, on the traditional tomb sweeping day, they bury unnamed ashes at a public cemetery where they contemplate and contextualize the meaning of death. Now, in China, death is a taboo subject, whereas in America, it is not. But one can learn a lot from death and in some ways help us to understand that life is precious and that it can be short for some and long for others. Now, the film Death Education is one that shows a somber respectfulness to those who have passed. And in this case, they are unclaimed and many unnamed. Only the Creator knows their names. And Ethan, I want to thank you so much for sharing your very compelling and powerfully moving film with me today.
Thank you for talking with me, and it has been a great journey.
Hey, well, much success to you and your film Death Education this year. I know that it will be accepted by many film festivals. So again, much success to you as well as your new film that you're working on. And as for me, ladies and gentlemen, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.